Picture this. You're 34 years old. You work in a warehouse, nothing glamorous, just forklifts, pallets, steel shelving, and a constant low-level awareness that half the things around you could be fatal if they fell the wrong way. Today started like every other day. A coffee, little back pain. Clock in, and you start moving boxes. Trying not to think too hard about how much of your life is spent lifting products you'll never buy. Then a pallet shifts. It's not like a movie moment. You won't hear dramatic music or any slow motion. Just one ugly cracking sound, and suddenly 1,500 pounds of boxed inventory and part of a metal rack come down on top of you. You don't get flattened like a cartoon pancake. That's not how this works. Oh, hey there. Before we talk about what happens, when several hundred pounds of force turn your chest, organs, and blood chemistry into a disaster zone, let's play a quick game. I'm going to share some myths about crush injuries, and you tell me whether they're true or false. Ready? Myth 1. If you're not bleeding much, the injury probably isn't that bad. False. Crush injuries can kill you internally even when the outside looks surprisingly normal. Myth 2. The worst part is the bones breaking. False. Broken bones are bad, organs failing, lungs collapsing, and your bloodstream filling with the chemical contents of dying muscle is much worse. Myth 3. Once the heavy object is removed, the danger is over. Very false. Sometimes removing the weight is exactly when the really lethal part starts. All right, let's talk about what getting crushed actually does to your body. Your body is built to handle force, but up to a certain point. You can fall, bruise, fracture something, maybe even walk it off if you're lucky. But crushing is different. The muscles are especially bad at tolerating this. When a muscle gets crushed and deprived of blood flow, the cells start dying. And when muscle cells die, they leak their contents into the bloodstream, potassium, acids, and proteins like myoglobin. Normally, those things stay inside cells where they belong. Now they're escaping into circulation like toxic debris from a collapsed building. That's called crush syndrome. And it's one of the reasons people can survive being trapped at first and then suddenly crash after rescue. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's walk through the next few minutes. Second 0. The weight hits. The pain is immediate and overwhelming, not sharp in one neat spot. Your nervous system lights up all at once. You scream or try to because your diaphragm just got compressed and breathing is suddenly a group project and your ribs are no longer contributing to it. First minute, adrenaline is flooding your system. Your heart is racing. You're conscious, terrified, and in extreme pain. If your abdomen took the force too, your liver, spleen, intestines, or kidneys may be injured. Organs do not enjoy being compressed between heavy metal and your own skeleton. They tear, they bleed sometimes slowly, sometimes catastrophically, minute 3 to 5. The trapped parts of your body are now losing circulation fast. Your legs may feel numb or weirdly distant because nerves hate pressure too. Sensation becomes less, not because things are improving, because the nerves are being damaged. If your chest is compressed enough, oxygen levels start dropping. You feel air hunger, that horrible sensation that no breath is enough. Your vision may sharpen strangely at first from adrenaline, then start narrowing. You start sweating, shaking, and maybe vomiting. Your body is throwing every alarm it has at the situation. Now let's say rescue workers arrive. They assess the scene. And this is where crush injuries get medically weird. Because if you've been pinned for a while, the weight itself is doing two opposite things at once. It's killing the tissue underneath it, yes, but it's also trapping a lot of the toxic byproducts in that crushed area. Remove the weight, and all of that can flood back into the bloodstream. That's the part people don't see coming. Minute 10 or 20 or 60, depending on how long you're trapped, the heavy object is lifted. For a second, this feels like salvation. The pressure comes off. Blood rushes back into the crushed tissue. But now all the potassium, acid, and muscle breakdown products trapped in that limb or torso can suddenly circulate through your body. Potassium is especially nasty here. Your heart runs on electrical signals, and potassium levels have to stay in a tight range for those signals to work properly. Too much potassium in the bloodstream can send the heart into a fatal arrhythmia. Not metaphorically, literally. 1 minute you're awake after being freed. The next your heart is beating in some cursed jazz improvisation that does not move blood. Meanwhile, myoglobin from destroyed muscle can clog up the kidneys. The kidneys are basically the body's filtration system, and crush injuries dump way too much garbage into them at once. So even if you survive the initial trauma, your kidneys may start failing hours later. So what does getting crushed actually feel like? At first, it feels like impact and impossibility. Not just pain. If the crush lasts more than a few minutes, things get stranger. You may feel weak, thirsty, cold, shaky, or detached. Shock starts creeping in. If you're bleeding internally, your body pulls blood away from the skin and extremities to keep your brain and heart going. You get pale. Your thoughts start slipping. If the chest trauma is bad enough, you may suffocate because you physically cannot ventilate. If the bleeding is bad enough, you may lose consciousness from shock. If the crush syndrome is severe enough, your heart may stop from arrhythmia after the pressure comes off. Different route, same general outcome. Your body gets overwhelmed faster than it can compensate. Reality check. Crush injuries are some of the nastiest trauma cases because they combine multiple problems at once. Fractures, internal bleeding, organ damage, breathing failure, everything someone can imagine. They happen in warehouse accidents, earthquakes, vehicle rollovers, industrial machinery incidents, building collapses, and pinned under heavy object situations that sound mundane right up until they aren't. So there you have it. What getting crushed does to your body. Broken bones, suffocation, internal bleeding, muscle death, kidney failure, and in the worst cases, a heart that short circuits the moment rescue finally comes. The good news is that most people will never experience this. The bad news is that heavy objects are everywhere, and physics has absolutely no sympathy for confidence. Stay safe. Respect machinery. Respect unstable loads. And if something weighs more than a small car, maybe don't stand where it can choose to become your problem. Because getting crushed is not one injury. It's your entire body failing in layers all at once.